Welcome back to another XLM video. And we're talking about the current move where we're looking at a potential reversal to the downside in XLM. No new all-time high was made. Now, this is something that I've been saying the whole time. It's not going to happen. Don't waste your time. Okay. Yes, you get a bit of a poke up due to some media attention, due to some hype, to some BS to do with the news and Trump. It's got nothing to do with the actual pattern itself, right? Something that happened in very small period of time here since what, mid-year. It's got nothing to do with the whole pattern that's been going on for many more years, right? So that's the thing you need to understand when it comes to these patterns. They are very specific, and one tiny wave is it doesn't mean anything. It's just part of a larger set of corrective waves that are occurring that have its intended purpose to create a pattern which is still unfolding. And that's what we're seeing here. So if I turn on these labels again, all right, we're looking at, first of all, a wave A zigzag to the downside that has not completed yet, right? If I'm to assume this is a 5 wave move here, like this, then a 5 wave move is not a correction on its own. It is part of the basically the start of a correction, right? So whenever you get 5 moves up, this is what I teach, right? You get the first correction is a zigzag wave A, right, which consists of a 5 wave move followed by an A, B, C, D, and E pattern, right? Which can go all the way up here. As long as it doesn't go below the beginning of the move, it will then produce the wave C for the first zigzag in a pattern that is a corrective pattern I call Arias wave, right? So okay. So what are we expecting after this move? This creates the first zigzag. Well, then there's a B wave, right? There's always going to be a B wave. Now the B wave could easily be just as big, right, as what we're seeing here, but I doubt it, right? It could just start doing the same thing, A, B, C, right, D, and E, before you get, the B wave thrust, the C wave for the B wave. So basically, where we are now in this pattern, we would be coming down to produce this move here, right? That would be what we're seeing here in the background. Okay, that's about to happen. Now, this is obviously still underway. It's my opinion, but you haven't seen XRP break that all-time high either. And recently, we've seen what appears to be some kind of a reversal happening, right? I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. This is not, you might be surprised, right? There's a lot of people here, they think, oh, it's going to the moon. Oh, you're going to lose money. Oh, I'm making money. You're not making money, blah, 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 blah. Whatever bullshit you want to say, right? It's got nothing to do with the actual pattern. Okay. So here I could basically sit here, watch the sharpness of this move go all the way up here and still be convinced that it's going to go down. It's not going to make a new all-time high. Whilst most people see this pattern and they are completely convinced that it's going to the moon. Now you tell me, what's the difference between both of those people thinking that their respective thoughts is basically knowledge of the waves, right? Knowing that this is very possible to happen in an E wave of a B wave of a zigzag, right? And this is obviously not Elliott wave, because Elliott wave doesn't look at zigzag in this manner, right? They look at it differently. So this here to me is more than likely what I say it is, right? And the proof will come in the pudding when this thing starts to roll over and basically follow through and continue to push lower, right? So we've seen this pattern here, which obviously wasn't in line with my previous idea, but the top was still in at that point by the looks of it. By the looks of it. I'm not saying that I'm continuing to short this. No. At this point in time, I'm just uh, basically doing a wait and see approach, right? Because the first move down is not always the easiest to trade. But in saying that, I did label it up, and basically what I seem to have noticed is that it has followed from this area after it sort of created the A, B, C, D, and E pattern, as it then started moving lower. So technically, yes, this is a top. It should continue lower from here. Okay, it's just that the count may not be 100% accurate because there has been some areas breached. So therefore, it's for me, it's almost taking the approach here that this thing was a weak 5-wave move to start off with. Okay, and yeah, it's a bit of a stretch, but it's not necessary for me to short this, right? For me, I can wait for a whole wave one down to occur before you get a corrective wave two bounce, and then look at taking a short from there, right? So to see that first move, wave one down, I think it's important, right? So what would that look like? For example, if you go back to, well, basically the first move down, right? You take a look at how that started off, right? It started off with that big massive move to the upside, right? Similar to what we've seen recently, right? Massive move to the upside. It's the move before the 5-wave down. And then look at how that first wave formed, right? It didn't really look like it made much sense in terms of the first wave down. So what I'm trying to say here is that you could definitely get like a wave one, right? With the corrective portion starting straight after that with an A, B, C, D, E, till you get to that point where there's a wave two, right? So here's the wave one, here's the wave two, and then from that point on, we made another 5 move down, right? So, I mean, I do think that the move that's coming next will be a bit sharper than this and not as prolonged. But once again, I can't really guarantee that because they are corrective patterns after all. They're not impulsive moves. So they are against the dominant trend. Okay, so the dominant trend would be up, right? So this is a counter trend move. So this particular wave that's a 5-wave move, as you can see, it's not as sharp as the 5-wave move that was before it that went up. Okay, so that would be the dominant trend. This is purely just corrective in preparation for further movement to the upside. Okay, so in the future, yes, this will definitely be going to the moon, but it needs to have a corrective pattern created first. So one of the things that can happen when that occurs is that you get, okay, you can get the A wave, right? Let me just do it in simple zigzag form. You get the A wave, which would be this whole move here, right? And then if A wave's the largest, you could get smaller, like the rest of the corrections could be smaller, right? And you could get like a base forming, right? And then once you break that level, it could then continue higher, right? So A wave being what we're seeing long term here, and then the rest of it could just sort of dilly dally up and down in the future before it takes off, right? And it may not take long at all, right? This is just an example, right? What you might see is instead of, you know, it might just basically base out in a very small manner, right? It could just continuously do this before it takes off, right? And it can, right? It can produce that, um, you know, inverse head and shoulder pattern at some point, right? Anyway, the point is that we haven't even seen the first zigzag complete. So that's very important. We need to see prices fall back down below this level here, 0.02. 0.02 is the minimum expectation for this thing to drop down below. It has to do it. Why is that? Is because, well, you see, when a C wave of a zigzag completes, it has to make the final low, if it's to the downside, has to make the final low below all the previous waves, which includes the first initial move plus any corrective wave. So even if this B wave would have expanded below that, it would have to make a low below that as well. So yeah, so that's why I say 0.02. Now, the other thing I just want to highlight on this thing that, you know, yes, we saw a pretty decent move to the upside, but that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, right? And the reason for that is because the higher that last wave goes, the higher that the target is in the downside. So it's not going to crash much lower than that, that 0.01 area, right? It's not going to go to like 007 or 003 like I thought, right? And I thought that. Why? Because this pattern hadn't happened before. So you're going to only take your measurement from the last high of the E wave, which obviously hadn't completed at that point. It seems to be complete now, but we need to just see that follow through. Like I mentioned, like what happened back here, we need to see some corrective evidence, which is still early days unfolding. As you can see, it took a while back here, and it's going to take a while here. So we need to just wait for that to happen. I'm not sure how long that's going to take, so patience is necessary. That's why I'm not jumping on these videos too often, because I want to see the pattern unfold a little bit more before we actually think about taking any real official, short trade position. All right, I haven't really put in a short trade idea officially, is in with the chart and everything, because it wouldn't be wise. But in terms of like what Litecoin is doing, it's also showing that same reversal. As I mentioned before, Litecoin hasn't had the same media hype and attention, so it only went up a certain amount and then it's just tanking now. It's a fairly massive reversal as it appears on that particular chart. So I think it's more convincing that it's the end of wave E for that move too, which is a bit more unfortunate for Litecoin because it means it's probably got further to fall. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that for now, but that's my take on what's going on here. We're going to wait a little bit before we get into trying to check out what a proper setup would look like if we're going to short this thing. Because we would have to wait for that structure to occur first, just in case there is potentially another leg higher to fully top it out, to really get the sense that a reversal is in place. Because typically you get reversals that are very sharp, right? Not like this shit. And they're usually actually like a pretty sharp reversal, or something as ferocious, more ferocious to the downside than what it looks like to be going to the upside. So it doesn't look very convincing at the moment, I must admit, right? So there's no point jumping the gun. It'd be probably just a little bit more wiser to just wait. But in terms of if you're long at the moment, yeah, that is I wouldn't recommend being long at the moment in general, especially if you're like buying at the highs here when you haven't seen any confirmation of a break of the top, right? If we happen to break the top for whatever reason, right, then obviously the understanding that I've provided in this video is incorrect, right? I do have another view that I put out ages ago on what it could be, potentially like another scenario, but I haven't really seen any proof as to point to that direction where I should be thinking that way at this stage, right? There's just too much evidence against it, so I don't want to go trying to produce ideas that really they don't resonate with me unless there's some kind of proof that it could be that. At this stage, it doesn't seem like it. XRP looks like it probably will reverse soon from here, and Litecoin as well. So yeah, hopefully that's a good info for you. I'll catch you on the next one.